Her gorgeous eyes widened as she declared sternly that mastering the sword alone makes magic look like child's play. Looking at the two nervous kids before her, she questioned if Kung-gu thought this was some kind of game, wanting his friend to study under her. Hanan timidly bowed in a polite greeting. Kung-gu felt awkward. He realized Hongjina had a point about criticizing the untalented, but he was annoyed at being judged during his downtime. Hongjina stated bluntly that she only came because the Divine Sword Guild asked, but if the two kids didn't meet her standards, she'd leave immediately. Kung-gu thought to himself that even though she was being sarcastic now, if Hongjina recognized Hanan's talent, her attitude would probably change. He couldn't help but get excited and urged her, "Then please check her out right now." Hongjina laughed out loud, agreeing to do just that. She mused that she'd heard Hanan was a shy little girl, but she figured the kid just wanted to learn magic to make up for having zero talent with a sword. She reached for her black hat and confidently explained the basic qualities she would evaluate in both of them. That includes the amount of mana in your body, your mana resistance, application skills, and overall control. All these factors are essential for controlling mana. She proudly held up the witch hat, declaring that everything would be revealed. By using an artifact, she created the magic beast hat. Kung-gu and Hanan quickly realized she was totally showing off. Even if the name was kinda lame, she turned the hat upside down, stuck her hand inside, and the two kids watched curiously. She explained that using the artifact was simple. When you put your hand into the activated hat, it analyzes the magical energy from you, and then creates a creature that matches your magical power. She swirled her hand inside, and the hat began to glow with a magical light. Even if you kids don't know how to control mana, the hat will automatically draw it from your body. She lifted up a glowing orb. When you gently shake your hand inside, the light gathers and forms a creature best suited to your magic. Hongjina opened her palm, letting the orb of light float up, leaving a graceful trail. She whispered, "Watch closely." The orb shot powerfully into the air, exploding like a brilliant firework. The two kids watched the burst of light with pure joy and admiration. As she raised her hand, an eagle made of light gently perched upon it. She explained, "This creature represents the state of my magical power. The amount of mana in my body can be judged by the size of the manifested creature." Hongjina let the magical beast fly away, continuing as the kids watched in excitement. The higher the creature's manifestation rate, the better your grasp of mana, concentration, application skills, and mana efficiency. Finally, she held out the hat and encouraged them. "All right now, you two give it a try. White hair, you're up first." Hanan timidly pointed to herself while Kung-gu watched her intently. He was secretly glad he'd let Hanan go first. As he watched Hanan shyly place both hands inside the hat, Kung-gu thought that although he couldn't see it clearly, she seemed to have a decent amount of mana. Hanan held a pure white orb and raised it to her chest, making Kung-gu wonder just how much mana can a 12-year-old even have. He secretly wondered if she was about to summon a rabbit just like herself. Suddenly, Hanan's crystal-clear eyes flew open, and the bright orb shot up in front of her, creating a gentle gust that stirred her silky white hair. The orb soared high above the three of them, and Hongjina had to shield her eyes from the blinding light. As a colossal creature appeared, casting an immense shadow over them all, someone gasped emotionally, "No way! This is unbelievable!" Kung-gu's mind raced with questions, his face darkening in utter shock. Hearing the massive beast let out a deafening roar that sent powerful tremors through the ground, he couldn't help but think back to his own expectations for Hanan's magic. And to think he was expecting something just a little bigger than a rabbit. Holy crap. But now it was an elephant. Instinctively, he rushed to shield Huan behind him and begged Hongjina, "Please, you have to get rid of that thing." Hongjina looked troubled, replying that she couldn't. Mana creatures, summoned by an artifact, can only be dismissed by their summoner. Panicking even more, Kyung-gu asked what the hell they were supposed to do. But before he could even process it, a heavy thud slammed into the wall behind them. He screamed in terror as the beast started aggressively smashing things everywhere. Hongjina tried to calm everyone down, saying they had no other choice now. She explained that if Huen couldn't control her mana, they'd either have to wait for it to dissipate on its own, or Huen would have to disperse the creature's consciousness, or knock it unconscious until the mana fades. An idea suddenly sparked in Kyung-gu's mind. Disperse the consciousness. He gently called out to Huen. The girl was absolutely terrified, but she instinctively managed to answer, "Why? Yeah." Kyung-gu quickly reached out his arms, and in an instant, Huen was wrapped in his gentle embrace. Her face turned beet red in surprise as Kyung-gu decisively took the lead. He guided her, telling her to close her eyes and focus on listening to his heartbeat. He told her to remember to count every single beat. A little shy, Huen obediently did as he said. his strong, steady heartbeat echoed while on the other side the elephant was getting more and more berserk, raising its foot to crush the two of them. Huen focused even harder despite her fear. She listened intently to Kyunggu's heartbeat as the glowing elephant charged straight for her, its light both brilliant and deadly. The girl broke down, sobbing in utter despair, but right in the nick of time, Kyunggu appeared, using his small body to completely shield Huen, banishing the creature just in time. Holy crap, that was close. Kyunggu breathed a sigh of relief, holding her tight. "I'm so glad you're okay," he murmured anxiously, asking if she was hurt. Suddenly, Hongjana called out from behind them, not holding back at all. She praised Huen, saying the girl had the potential to become a legendary witch, and that she desperately wanted to be her teacher. Hongjana placed a hand on her shoulder. With a sincere smile, she formally invited the young girl to become her disciple. During dinner, Kyunggu's dad cheerfully asked if Huen's magic test revealed that her magical creature was an elephant. Kyunggu excitedly agreed, and his little sister Yoon chimed in. It was a black times elephant. Kyunggu then recounted every single word from Huen's new master, how the elephant's size represented Huen's insane amount of mana, and its black color signified the rare and powerful dark element. Kyunggu's dad, being sharp, immediately understood. This was a power that was incredibly difficult to master. Even the renowned five-colored witch wanted Huen as her disciple. Kyunggu curiously asked if this meant Huen's future was basically guaranteed to be amazing, and just as he'd hoped it was true. Suddenly he paused, called out to his dad, and then, blushing a little, he cheekily asked if their family could, sponsor her. His dad held back a laugh, saying in a sarcastic tone, "Aha, so times was your real motive." Then, his expression turned serious as he assessed the situation. He said that if Huen became a disciple, she would receive foundational support from him, but the real question he needed answered was how much support the five-colored witch would provide. And that was the truth. Kyunggu knew she was in a different league now. Once a master takes a disciple, they will give our full support to the girl and her family. Your family just needs to support her studies. His father's voice cut through his thoughts. It was a reassurance that they still had their own way of supporting Huen. Kyunggu mumbled a reply, but his heart was racing with anxiety. He knew he was worried that Hongjana wouldn't want to get involved with his family, but deep down, he was just happy she found the perfect environment, one that could guarantee her all the resources and opportunities she needed. The fact that, when she grew up, she would become a badass, dark witch. He wondered to himself, she's gonna be okay now, right? But Kyunggu was a good kid. He still told himself he had to work his butt off to help Huen level up into an intermediate rank mage. As he ate and thought, his dad asked, "So you've decided to learn magic after all, huh?" Kyunggu casually replied that he would, since it would be a good supplement for his swordsmanship. The moment he said that, two pairs of sparkling eyes, his mom's and his sister's, locked onto him. Their main question was, what was his creature? He was bombarded with rapid-fire questions. Is it good? What color is it? Is it big? It made his head spin. And he remembered the moment Hongjana had curiously asked what kind of creature would manifest from him, the child of the Divine Sword Clan. Kyunggu had focused all of his power into his hands and, to everyone's surprise, an adorable, pure white lion cub appeared. He answered his family's questions honestly, but with a totally reluctant look on his face. His whole family was ecstatic. This was followed by a flood of praise from his parents and little sister, calling it grand magic and a sign of a talented son. And our boy could only force a smile and play along. He was genuinely happy that he could fuse with magic elements, but hearing the comments and seeing the gut-busting laughter from Hongjana and Huen, he knew he didn't have a lot of mana in his body. Luckily, it was balanced enough to support his swordsmanship. Hongjana was crying from laughter, quietly praising how interesting he was. Finally, she said that since she'd already taken Huen as a disciple, she would take him as one too, thinking it would be useful for her research. Kyunggu couldn't even crack a smile, because the familiar had a rabbit's head, and it reminded him of his weak past. Kyunggu clenched his fists, his lips tight with determination, vowing he would master this chance to learn magic. Just to master this magic. And so they threw themselves into learning from the five-colored witch. Just like that, 12 years flew by. Then one day, his father happily announced that even though the results weren't official, he was declared the Vice Lord of Rolus. The whole family cheered, but Kyunggu was floored that his dad was now a lord. He was shocked, wondering, is he doing this because of me? His father had never been ambitious enough to fight his own brother for the title. He'd always stepped back for the family's sake. Seeing his parents looking so affectionate, it hit him that his dad really was the Vice Lord now. He worriedly asked if his father wasn't afraid of competing with his uncles, but his dad was just thrilled, telling him that now Kyung-gu wouldn't have to worry even if he stirred up trouble. Kyung-gu was speechless watching his family plan a party, but he was still worried. His dad thought he was a troublemaker. Still, Kyung-gu couldn't help but smile. He didn't know what his dad was planning, but if it made him happy, he would support him wholeheartedly. And he did, congratulating his father with a huge smile. Time flew by, seasons changed, and they all continued their own routines. Some went to school, others trained relentlessly. Little by little, everything began to change. The five-colored witch Hongzina finally mastered all 7 types of magic. During one training session, Han Yun asked Kyung-gu, "Why do you push yourself so hard?" Kyung-gu paused his wooden sword, answering honestly, "Because I want to be stronger." Han Yun was puzzled. "But you're already crazy strong." Han Yun said seriously that a respected upperclassman called him one of the strongest fighters of his generation. Under the age of 16, the little girl from back then had blossomed into a beautiful young woman, and Kyung-gu was no different. The once frail boy had become tough, his features sharper and colder. Wiping away his sweat, he said he needed to be stronger because more than anyone, as someone who's lived a past life, he knew this level of effort wasn't nearly enough. That's why he trained non-stop for the past 4 years. Because, according to his memories, the game's main story was set to begin in just 1 year. With his current power, Kyung-gu could handle any incidents in the city, but he knew damn well that if he died again, it was game over for real. That's why he had to get stronger, way stronger. He wasn't satisfied with his current level. Han Yun frowned, asking just how strong he planned to get. Kyung-gu, half joking and half serious, blurted out, "Strong enough to stop the world from ending." Han Yun got annoyed, thinking he was messing with her, but Kyung-gu was dead serious. He wiped his sweat, thinking about the strongest people he knew. He wanted to surpass his own grandfather. Han Yun was shocked. "You mean your Time's grandfather, the head of the Guardian Sword Clan, also known as the Beast King?" Kyung-gu said with a mix of awe and competitive fire. "I'm going to defeat him." Han Yun, honestly, remarked that his goal was admirable, wanting to surpass beings who were already on another level. He knew it was a long shot, but he said, with determination, "You gotta aim for the top. There's no rule saying it's impossible." Han Yun then, and now no matter how much she grew up, always had his back. Blushing, she said she'd always support him so he could become even stronger than the Beast King. Kyung-gu looked at her thoughtfully for a long moment, then finally broke into a relaxed smile. He asked her to promise she'd always be by his side no matter what. He knew he couldn't save the world alone. He couldn't stop the countless disasters with his current skills. He needed Hanbin and his crew. He needed the other characters, and finally, Han Yun, the former villainess. But now he knew she was his most trustworthy ally. Just as he was lost in thought, Han Yun suddenly shouted his name excitedly, pointing into the distance. Kyung-gu's eyes lit up. He looked towards the bustling city ahead. He realized they had finally arrived at the city academy. Han Yun gasped. "I've never seen an artificial island like this," she exclaimed, completely impressed. Kyung-gu admitted it was his first time seeing it too. He smiled, thinking back on his 5 years of intense training. His stamina, agility, and muscle mass had all leveled up significantly. His magic reserves hadn't grown a ton, but their quality had improved. Kyung-gu also noticed that his stat growth had slowed down after hitting a certain threshold, but he was sure it would spike again with more training at the City Academy. And as the story progressed, the City Academy was an educational institute created to train and nurture elite hunters. There was a scene where the main character, Kang Hanbin, got hyped looking at the school, and that's the exact scene Kyung-gu wanted to see. He'd always wanted to witness the iconic moments from the game in person. It was like a fan finally seeing their idol succeed. He was secretly buzzing with excitement, though a bit bummed that he wouldn't see Kang Hanbin at the entrance exam since he got a special admission. Still, he hoped to meet him soon. Witnessing this was like a fan's dream coming true. And on top of all that, he suddenly blushed, glancing at the girl beside him. Han Yun was murmuring about how beautiful the view was, and how deep blue the water was. Kyung-gu remembered Han Yun saying she wanted to test her skills here. That's why he was so excited too. The girl, in his heart, had always held a special place. This went way back to when a naive Han Yun had curiously asked if you could see the ocean from the City Academy. He'd asked why she wanted to know. Han Yun admitted she'd never seen the ocean before, and was desperate to see it. She had once seen a beautiful picture of the sea, which made her dream of riding a boat and watching the waves. He had silently committed it to memory, and now he cheerfully asked again, "Has your dream come true yet?" Han Yun was both flustered and shocked, not expecting him to still remember. Kyun-gu smiled sincerely and said he would never forget her dream. Han Yun blushed speechless. While they were having their romantic moment, the side characters in the back were puking their guts out, muttering about why they had to take a train when they had money and could have taken a plane. Han Yun and Kyun-gu were speechless. They had no idea their motion sickness was that bad. "Only a few more minutes until we reach the Metropolitan Academy." The announcer's voice droned on, wishing the candidates good luck. The magnificent scenery before them left both Han Yun and Kyun-gu completely dumbfounded, their jaws on the floor. But in the distance, shaky footsteps approached. Their complexions looked terrible, like they were about to meet their maker. The three young men collapsed at Heaven's Gate, vomiting non-stop, quietly thanking the gods that they were finally on solid ground. Han Yun noticed from nearby and caringly asked if they needed a spell for their motion sickness. But being the manly men they were, they brushed it off. Han Yun knew it was just their pride talking, so she didn't mind provoking them further, adding that if they wanted to become hunters, they had to get over train sickness. This made the three guys clutch their stomachs in anger, cursing her under their breath. But Han Yun and Kyun-gu couldn't care less. They were focused on the flyer. The sky was a clear blue, and both Han Yun and Kyun-gu looked around, searching for Hwangha Academy. The only problem was, the place was so massive, they couldn't find the path anywhere, and were now officially lost. So Han Yun made the call. "If we want to get to Sector 23, we go that way." But as they were searching for the way, something suddenly appeared. It made Kyun-gu and Han Yun simultaneously whip their heads around to look. Turns out it was a cute girl coming over to say hi. She asked if they were heading to Hwangha Academy. It seems Kyun-gu isn't exactly an introvert, especially in front of someone this adorable, as he readily shared his goal of getting into Hwangha Academy. He also took the initiative to ask if Eunbi was also applying, thinking to himself that running into her here was a solid 10 out of 10. To introduce Go Eunbi, she's a member of Kang Hanbin's team. Although she calls herself an introvert, in reality, her personality is very cheerful and friendly, and her social skills are excellent. That's why everyone at Hwangha Academy knows her. But plot twist, Eunbi doesn't realize this, and denies being an extrovert, because she claims she doesn't have many friends. Saying it a little is cute, but saying it a lot has earned her the nickname, the emotional scammer. She also has the ability to get along with anyone, which allows Eunbi to act as an intelligence officer for Kang Hanbin, a guy who is often completely oblivious to the situation around him. Kyun-gu felt this was the perfect moment to get to know this girl, so he didn't hesitate to extend his hand and introduce himself. Eunbi was also happy to make a new friend, and began to chat with him. Being a peace-loving person, Eunbi cheerfully called for them to compete fairly instead of fighting. If she were turned into an animal right now, she'd definitely be a puppy. Eunbi also showed off her high-level social skills by getting to know Kyun-gu's companion, complimenting her hair. She had noticed it when they were on the train together. How could someone's hair be so beautiful and healthy? But Han Yun showed no reaction, simply hiding behind Kyun-gu and turning her face away. You'd think Han Yun was just being shy. But nope, Han Yun's face was pale as a ghost, like she was about to die. Being bright and energetic was really hard for Han Yun. Kyun-gu advised her to just follow the social script, but Han Yun was used to him, not Eunbi. To Han Yun, Eunbi was like a giant tail-wagging puppy while she was just a little rabbit. Seeing her freaking out like that, Kyun-gu jumped in to save the day, introducing Han Yun to Eunbi and explaining the situation to her. But right at that moment, another girl came looking for Eunbi. She kept calling out loudly, prompting Kyun-gu to quickly tell her they were over here. Eunbi cheerfully said goodbye to her new friends. Not wanting to waste any more time, she just hoped they could all meet up again one day. Han Yun awkwardly greeted her back, thinking, damn, Eunbi is a total extrovert. She's probably got more friends than an army, enough to rival my entire clan. Once things settled down, Kyung-gu spoke to Hae-Hin-yun. Time to go. Not only that, the other three guys were totally hyped for it. Right then, they were on train A23. Everyone on the train was laughing and chatting, but Han Yun and Kyun-gu were the only two silent in the crowd. But Kyun-gu wasn't silent in his own mind. He gazed out at the sky, trying to take it all in, when suddenly black holes ripped open above. He immediately recognized them as gates, and realized many more had opened over the city's academy. On top of that, if they couldn't handle these gates, the world's erosion rate would skyrocket. That meant they'd hit the point of no return. As if struck by a realization, Kyun-gu made up his mind. He couldn't give up now. Just like that, life throws you a curveball, and when a guy with a scarred face welcomes you, a terrified kid wants nothing more than to run home. Han Yun, confused, turned to Kyung-gu and asked why would anyone want to bolt right before the exam. She figured he must be terrified of dying before even signing the waiver. It was only when rereading the waiver that Han-Yun noticed the academy wasn't responsible for any accidents. But Kyung-gu, ever the optimist, just encouraged her to believe in herself. But then Kyung-gu spotted something else. It looked like Sung-gu in the distance. Seeing him, Kyung-gu felt a bit of anticipation. Since they were the same age, Sung-gu was definitely here for the exam, but they'd probably be on different teams, so they'd just have to see. Just then, everyone was handed an information packet, and an announcement told them to get in position. Han-Yun's jaw dropped when she saw the exam pass was shaped like a badge, but they were clearly told the passes would be distributed a week in advance, a detail Kyung-gu dismissed. Based on his experience, Kyung-gu figured they wanted to test their basic abilities first, with the practical exam starting a week later. And with that, the doors to the lecture hall began to open. If that was the case, Han-Yun realized it would be a huge problem if she were late. This was it, the notoriously famous annual aptitude test. At that moment, the announcer stepped up to officially begin the exam. He went over the basic things they needed to know for the test. The announcer added some special points to take note of things that would be on the test, the total number of questions, and even how they were color-coded by type. And he didn't forget to stress the importance of their exam ID number. The exam pass would also be used to monitor their vitals, just in case of an emergency. The announcer carefully explained how to use the pass. After finishing his part, his expression suddenly turned serious. The three Yu brothers, along with Han-Yun and Sung-gu standing outside, felt the tense atmosphere, just hoping for the best for everyone. The three Yu brothers immediately got together, trying to recruit members for their team, but Kyung-gu shut them down flat. He preferred to work solo rather than team up, which left the Yu brothers stunned as they desperately tried to recruit others. All around them, people were frantically searching for teammates. The place turned into total chaos, but as a classic introvert, Kyung-gu found the whole thing pointless. Teaming up at this stage was basically just asking to carry dead weight. Kyung-gu bluntly explained to them that forming a team was just a sign of insecurity and an inability to hold one's own, which pissed off the Yu brothers. They were about to argue back, but he analyzed it even further. They'd have a ton of work to handle within a week, so it was better to just fend for yourself. And Kyung-gu also believed that even without him, they could still handle their own problems, which made the Yu brothers feel just fine, as in fine and totally screwed. Unable to convince him, the Yu brothers got angry and pointed, wanting to give him a piece of their mind. "Fine, we won't force you. See you tomorrow." Seeing the Yu brothers were dealt with, Kyung-gu turned around and told Han-Yun they should head to the hotel. But she was confused. "Isn't this where you're supposed to ditch me?" But since their rooms were close to each other, they could explore the area together. But life is full of harsh realities. Han-Yun suddenly let out a scream. Both Han-Yun and Kyung-gu stared around, their jaws dropped in confusion. Turns out, due to a computer glitch, they were assigned to the exact same room. The receptionist bowed deeply, apologizing profusely. Apparently, a sudden surge of applicants meant they couldn't arrange the rooms in time. To keep their two guests, the receptionist quickly said they would issue a full refund. But Han-Yun still hadn't recovered from the shock. She said she was okay, but she looked anything but. With no other choice, she had to go along with it, though she didn't look okay at all. Stepping inside, she had to admit the room was huge and really clean. Kyung-gu felt lucky that at least the room had 2 beds, but by now, Han-Yun looked completely drained. She muttered a silent prayer, trying to gaslight herself into not freaking out. Standing beside her, Kyung-gu could only helplessly try to calm her down. He sighed, then gave her a smile that was 3 parts helplessness and 7 parts affection. Kyung-gu didn't push it and offered to sleep somewhere else. But the truth was, it wasn't that she hated him, which made Kyung-gu a little flustered, and the atmosphere suddenly turned blush pink. But she was too embarrassed, so she threw a pillow at his face and ran off, leaving him feeling utterly helpless. But once Han-Yun was gone, Kyung-gu's true worried expression showed as he sat on the bed. "She'll probably be fine." Suddenly, as he was sitting there, shards of a mirror began floating in front of him. He guessed they were puzzle pieces, but with a test this complex, there was no way it'd be that easy. Looking closely at the pieces, he realized it was just as he thought, a test within a test. He slowly figured out how to solve the problem expertly, using his ability to piece them together. Finally, they formed a perfect diamond. And just like that, the problem was solved. Model. His exam ticket suddenly lit up with a number and turned pure white. Just then, Han-Yun, fresh from a shower, came up and asked Kyung-gu, "Looks like you figured out the exam problem." After getting everything sorted, he wanted to wash off the day's filth and decided to take a shower, but things didn't go as planned. Suddenly, he tripped his momentum, sending him stumbling forward, right into Han-Yun. The awkward position made her blush bright red, and on pure instinct, she landed a solid punch right on him. After that incident, Henyun gave Kyunggu the cold shoulder all morning, totally killing his mood. On top of that, the nights had been incredibly noisy. He couldn't sleep at all. The problem was unchecked excess mana, which creates spatial rifts for monsters to pour through. This happens when many mana users gather in one place, causing a massive release of surplus energy. Naturally, this caused even more spatial rifts to appear. And that was the real reason the nights were so damn loud, and why he couldn't get any sleep. Kyunggu listlessly chewed his rice, all while having to look at Henyun's cold expression. It made the rice taste like plastic. Realizing this couldn't go on, Kyunggu finally suggested, "Hey, maybe we should split up and work alone." Henyun shot up from her seat. Though he hated to do it, Kyunggu explained the benefits of them splitting up for the task. But this only made Henyun feel more hurt, thinking to herself, he was the one who asked me to team up, and now he's just bailing on me. From her response, it seemed like she had cooled down a bit, so he smiled and started talking normally again. Later that night, Kyunggu was analyzing data on a screen. He asked Henyun for a pen, explaining, "This is the kind of test that requires you to use various tools to solve it." Once he decrypted it, he understood. It was a core code. After solving the core code to get the location, Henyun and Kyunggu decided to split up to be more efficient, and they quickly found the place the keyword pointed to. Thinking back to the hint paper, it seemed that it was complex, but not for Kyunggu, since he was a huge fan of Braveheart. A notification popped up welcoming him to the Hall of Fame. Looks like this is the first stop, he figured. Looking around, he analyzed the hints. The mention of a diamond probably referred to the founder of this place. Suddenly, Kyunggu spotted something and froze in his tracks. A massive statue of the founder loomed before him. Kyunggu followed the footprint clues, and soon found a diamond-shaped symbol nearby, which revealed a mana artifact. He touched it, and just like that, he passed the test. Having cleared 2 challenges already, Kyunggu started getting excited for whatever came next. Just like that, Kyunggu blazed through the tests like a tidal wave, solving them at lightning speed. Everything was going so smoothly, it was almost unbelievable, leaving both Henyun and Kyunggu more hyped than ever. But then they noticed more people showing up. Henyun's expression soured. The hyenas were starting to gather. He was slowly starting to get it. This exam wasn't just a test of problem-solving skills. You also needed to have a complete admission ticket. Those guys were frantically chasing Kyunggu and Henyun. And it finally clicked. The only way to get a complete ticket was to steal someone else's. That's why the #1 rule was to protect your own ticket at all costs. Henyun got Kyunggu's signal and smartly ducked into a dead-end alley. When her pursuers reached the end, they stopped to catch their breath, only to find no one there. One of them ordered his crew to search the area, but a surprisingly confident voice cut in, "You guys looking for someone?" With his sword in hand, his confidence soared. He was ready to show these punks who's boss. Seeing he was alone, they got cocky, thinking they could win with numbers. But they were in for a rude awakening. Suddenly, a purple magic circle flared to life. From above, Henyun had been waiting to spring her trap. Just like that, the thugs were overwhelmed by fear and collapsed. Kyunggu seized the moment and threatened them. "Even with all of you, you really think you can lay a single finger on us?" Witnessing this power, the thugs were thrown into a state of confusion and absolute terror. Wasting no time, Kyunggu unleashed his own magic and moved in for the kill. When the dust settled, every single one of them was down for the count. Kyunggu told Henyun to grab their exam passes, but the bullies weren't about to let that happen. "But hey, if you're gonna act like thugs, you better be ready for the payback." Kyunggu smirked and told them to just take their punishment. And just like that, the exam passes were thrown into the air. Kyunggu raised his sword and shredded every single one, leaving the other examinees stunned as their passes disintegrated right before their eyes. With the swagger of a true victor, Kyunggu started schooling the would-be thieves on basic human decency. Watching from the side, Henyun felt a chill run down her spine. This guy was a legit demon. And with that, Kyunggu and Henyun passed the test. After his SSS-RANK gift awakening, Kyunggu and Henyun pressed on to the next test site. Man, this exam must be bankrolled by some serious cash. It was being held in a massive venue with a ton of different locations. Henyun was worried about getting lost, but thankfully, his hidden system reincarnation meant every location was clearly marked in his mind. Before long, they arrived at the Ritz Center. Looks like this was the place. Walking inside confidently, Kyunggu was surprised to see it packed with so many people. With her fear of crowds, Henyun instinctively hid behind Kyunggu. Nobody in here looked friendly. Every single person was shooting daggers at the two of them. Kyunggu stood in front of Henyun, trying to hype her up a bit. but still being stared down like this was seriously weird. He'd just have to suck it up for the exam pass. After all, their passes had turned black, which meant they'd already solved 30 questions. Suddenly, the whispers shifted towards Henyun, making her tremble a little. The harsh words kept coming, making Henyun even more terrified. She wanted to go home more than anything. She gave Kyunggu a little push, feeling embarrassed, but he told her there was nothing to be ashamed of. Looking on the bright side, she might even get famous from this. But just as quickly, the gossip turned from Henyun to Kyunggu. At first, he was a little annoyed, but hearing them praise him was something he could live with. But when they brought up his past as the sword god's rabbit, his body froze solid. He was speechless. What the hell were these rumors even trying to accomplish? That past was something he never wanted to revisit, a part of his trash to OP transmigration he wanted to bury forever. But times had changed, he was on a whole different level now. Lately he was even known as a lion. The whispers grew louder, making Kyunggu so pissed he felt like he was gonna cough up blood. His fists were clenched, ready to throw down. Just then, a voice called out, snapping Kyunggu back to his senses. He saw the 3 Yu brothers standing there calling his name, and not just them, Eunbi was there too. Walking over to the Yu brothers, he made some small talk with Eunbi, so she remembered him after all. She confirmed that they were both super famous, partly because Kyunggu's family background was just that dazzling. Wait, 2 people? That made Kyunggu curious about who the other person was. Eunbi kindly pointed to one side of the room, whispering what she'd overheard from the crowd. It was a guy, dressed in black, with tanned skin. He didn't look very friendly, but word was, he came from the righteous Yihan clan. But from what Eunbi had gathered, it seemed like that guy had his eyes on Kyunggu for a while now. Kyunggu had no idea who he was, which surprised Eunbi, who thought Kyunggu knew everything. He confirmed it was all just rumors. As for the guy, his name was Yihan Harang from the righteous Yi clan. Noticing Kyunggu, looking at him, Harang strode over, aggressively, without a hint of hesitation. Kyunggu wondered why this guy was coming at him, but he just watched as Harang got right in his personal space, glaring at him intensely. He was a bit lost for words, especially when the guy interrogated him about his identity with a seriously hostile tone. Harang's eyebrows furrowed as he sized him up, but then his expression completely changed into a friendly, welcoming smile. Seeing that Kyunggu had to admit the dude was pretty badass. He played along, hoping to make a new friend. Both sides enthusiastically suggested having a friendly match together, but thinking about it, friendly match felt more like a chase, with Harang targeting Kyunggu as a benchmark to constantly push himself higher. Figuring that wasn't so bad, Kyunggu accepted the challenge from the guy in front of him. But the atmosphere was cut short by an announcement: anyone entering the exam room now would be disqualified. A group of students and an invigilator walked in, looking like they owned the place. The invigilator ordered them to bring in the equipment. A cart was wheeled inside. Each student council member picked up a stone-like block, their arms straining under the weight, which made Kyunggu wonder about the thing in front of him. Noticing his look, the 2 students holding the block turned and glared at him murderously. They were clearly holding a grudge against the new juniors, which made one of the newcomers snort with laughter. The invigilator immediately turned his head, causing the student to freeze his mouth, hanging open in shock. The invigilator showed no mercy, instantly disqualifying him. After all, character comes before everything else. The student council quickly rushed over to haul away the kid who was now foaming at. The way they carried him off was a little odd. Kyunggu was a bit hesitant, but the person he was worried about had already sent him 3 text messages. He figured his sister was on the other end, judging everyone strictly, and that more people were about to get cut. The invigilator announced they were starting the engines and told everyone to step back. Only then did Kyunggu realize the cubes the seniors had carried in were actually machines, and they were starting to glow. They began to transform rapidly as they activated, startling Hyunyun and Kyunggu. The cubes had now morphed into solid stone walls. The examiner announced, "These doors must be opened by the contestant's own hands. If you can open one, you pass. If not, you're eliminated." The student aides assisting the examiner slowly set each massive block into position. And not only that, but this test could be attempted multiple times. And now the test began. Elsewhere, every single move was being broadcast on a massive screen for all to see. The crowd watching the screens gasped as the number of successful candidates began to skyrocket. In the testing room, everyone struggled to push their doors open. The sound of elimination announcements echoed non-stop. Seeing the reality of the situation was crushing everyone's spirits. Analyzing the data, some students saw the numbers weren't as grim as they seemed, hoping more people would make it through. Suddenly, a roar so loud it could startle a ghost ripped through. Harang unleashed his power, blowing the doors wide open and shocking everyone with his overwhelming strength. a true descendant of the Yang clan. And just like that, Harang passed the test. But one question remained. With all that power, why did he only open 4 doors? But since the 5th door requires an insane amount of power to open, clearing 4 doors was already seriously impressive. However, besides Harang, there were others from different clans who had managed to open 5 doors. As expected, the kids from prestigious families have off-the-charts potential. Eunbi also seemed to pass, smiling cheerfully at everyone. The kids these days are truly full of potential. But suddenly the observers noticed something. Hyun-Yoon stepped forward, wanting to test her own strength. She placed her hand on the door, and a colossal power erupted from her, leaving everyone with their jaws on the floor, stunned by the sheer density of her magic. And just like that, Hyun-Yoon easily pushed the door open, causing the examiner's face to go pale. He stammered while announcing that she'd passed silently, wondering how on earth she could open the door so effortlessly. He couldn't help but wonder what family she came from to possess such power. The mysterious figures began to confer immediately, realizing she was one of Professor Hong's disciples. So Hyun-Yoon was a disciple of the 7-colored mage. But Professor Hong just smiled warmly and said, "It seems I have a knack for finding talented disciples, all thanks to Hyun-Yoon." But after passing, a shy Hyun-Yoon hid behind Kyunggu while looking at the stat board. If she hadn't been able to open the door, she would have been scolded for not training hard enough. Not only that, her mana level of 884 was considered incredibly high among mages. Kyunggu suddenly felt like teasing her a bit and jokingly asked why she was being shy, which only made Hyun-Yoon blush even more. Now it was Kyunggu's turn, and he confidently strode toward the door. It looked so small from far away, but up close. Holy crap, this thing is massive. Without a second's hesitation, he placed his hand on the door, readying his power. And just like that, Kyunggu easily opened the first door, and then the second, as everyone watched in awe. Then the third door. All eyes were on him. With each new door, Kyunggu had to exert more and more strength. If the 4th door was already giving him trouble, how would he ever handle the 5th? Standing before the 5th door, Kyunggu felt a powerful instinct urging him to back away. An emergency announcement suddenly blared, telling contestants to withdraw their mana or risk causing an explosion. But the situation was rapidly getting worse, causing Kyunggu to start panicking. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He needed to trust his instincts and overcome his fear. At that moment, his power surged with greater intensity. Kyunggu finally managed to open the 5th door. No one knew what was happening. The entire room was in a state of utter confusion. It was clear that the 5th door hadn't reacted at all initially, but now it was wide open. "We need to check if the door is malfunctioning." Professor Hong, among the group of mysterious figures, remained silent, lost in thought. The door wasn't broken at all. Kyunggu had simply used Hyun-Yoon's magic to boost his efficiency and deliberately put himself in a dangerous situation to unlock his limits. In all his years, Professor Hong had never seen anything like it. At that moment, everyone in the exam hall was in total disbelief. Kyunggu tried to insist he was fine, but Hyun-Yoon immediately chewed him out, saying what he just did was incredibly reckless. Suddenly, from a distance, Harang excitedly called out his name, genuinely impressed with how he and Hyun-Yoon handled the test. The way she ran up to him like an obsessed fangirl totally freaked Kyunggu out. Regardless, Harang enthusiastically invited them to eat together. And just like that, Kyunggu and Hyun-Yoon passed the test. The next exam was the path up Mount Jiri. An announcement echoed, letting the candidates know the test had officially begun. At this point, everyone was laser-focused on the objective, running their asses off. The announcements continued, keeping the candidates updated on the rules. For our hero on his journey from trash to OP transmigration, this exam is everything. Like all the other candidates, including those from powerful clans, he's putting his life on the line. The exam is divided into stages, with time limits set in minutes and hours. Everyone hoped for a smooth run, but it wasn't long before screams echoed out as a massive log hurtled towards them with no brakes. Hyun-Yoon feels like she's about to get sent to the afterlife, which totally freaks Kyunggu out too. But he's been observing the test this whole time, using the sharp intellect from his hidden system reincarnation to find the fastest solution. Looking at the waterfall up ahead, he realizes it must be the key to clearing this test. Suddenly, Kyunggu glances down and spots something, an iron plate with an arrow on it. Definitely a trap. Seeing it, a knowing grin spreads across his face. He's found the way to beat this challenge. An announcement reveals time is running out. Everyone starts to panic, only 10 minutes left to hit the 4-hour mark. Just then, the mages from the big shot clans easily ace the test. The proctors watching are impressed, thinking the candidates from famous clans are truly special. But then, a massive scream echoes through the mountains as someone falls into a trap. Meanwhile, Henyun and Kyunggu are struggling just as much, clinging on for dear life and waiting for the right moment. Kyunggu signals to Henyun, now's the perfect time to make their move. She immediately unleashes her power. And down to the wire, right as the clock hit the 4-hour mark they passed. Everyone collapses on the ground, completely exhausted. He thought he was a goner for sure. Thinking back to activate his SSS-RANK infinite instinct, he needs to feel a legitimate threat to his life. On top of that, the traps were designed to force them along a specific path, which is why it took Henyun and Kyunggu so long to solve the test. At one point, Kyunggu even got blasted into the sky, but in the end, they both passed with the highest scores. Finally, it's all over. Back at their usual tea shop, he takes a moment to appreciate the decor. Seriously, every time he comes here, he feels relaxed and even a bit happy, a feeling tied to memories from his past life. Suddenly, someone approaches to congratulate them on passing and asks Henyun if she's ready for the third round. It's their friend Shun. The two girls are happy to see each other, and Kyunggu is thrilled to see her too. Only Henyun looks completely drained. Seeing the state she's in, they all sit down for tea, while Shun gently asks her younger friends how they're holding up. And so, a warm conversation begins. Kyunggu, genuinely happy, chats away with Shun. He also tries to ask about her current situation, but Shun either doesn't know, or isn't willing to share any info about the upcoming test. Because honestly, that would be cheating. Out of genuine care, instead of giving them spoilers, Shun decides to offer advice. This gets both of them hyped to listen. Shun starts by analyzing the data from every practical exam over the years. She breaks down the typical conditions and challenges, paying special attention to the 4th and 5th rounds. She explains it all to them, leading Kyunggu to deduce that, against monsters, the test will require either physical or magical attacks. And that's a very real possibility. After getting Shun's advice, both Kyunggu and Henyun feel way more confident. Meanwhile, Shun lets out a quiet sigh, just hoping her dear friends will pass the test. The three of them keep talking until it's time to part ways. Shun kindly warns them to be careful of hidden dangers, especially since knights at the city academy are a whole different beast. They have to be on guard. Suddenly from the darkness, a pair of blood-red eyes appears. A demon closes in on the civilians, wondering with amusement who will be the next candidate for its doll collection. The next day, in Dimensional Gate Hall 206, all candidates are ordered to assemble. The proctor steps forward to announce the details and format of the 3rd and 4th tests. Kyunggu immediately realizes this means from today on, no one is returning to the dorms. They'll have to survive in the environment behind the gate. What the hell is going on? News is spreading about criminals who've betrayed the Hunter Code. They're known as villains. Among them are those who have replaced their hearts with a special crystal, a totally inhumane act for a mage. These individuals have red eyes and constantly hunt living creatures for their mana. They've pretty much lost all their ideals, thoughts, and humanity. The most notorious of them all is the puppet witch, Lee Hun, and now she's officially entered the game. If that's the case, Kyunggu thinks, then last night was the perfect time to snatch students' bodies right after the weaker ones were eliminated. His mind races, trying to figure out Lee Hun's plan. Based on his deductions, she is absurdly dangerous. She specializes in collecting and hunting talented students. If this is true, he needs to level up his preparations. A notification panel appears. He has entered the test. But all his planning goes down the drain as he comes face to face with a dimensional phantom rabbit. This dark old-school test doesn't seem to have any info on Lee Honorable, or so he thought. Thanks to this, Henyun and Kyunggu easily aced the test, finishing at the top of the ranks. Everyone watching the monitors was stunned. Kyunggu struggled to keep a clear head so he could analyze the appearance of Liga Honorable, and today all the candidates gathered waiting for the final test. He glanced over at Henyun. If he and Henyun couldn't face Liga Hon alone, then if they ran into her, they'd have no choice but to drag others in for help. Kang Hanbun's team members were probably their best bet. Seeing Harang's agreeable expression, Kyunggu still couldn't get used to it and wanted to curse. But this was a golden opportunity to defeat Liga Hon's clone and weaken the real one. Just then, a foot suddenly appeared. Everyone began to enter the 5th test area, and the one explaining it would be the Academy's president, Ju Gang, the Star Witch. President Soho saw the president's silhouette, and everyone was shocked. Her reputation was legendary. She was insanely powerful and a total badass. The president's pleasant voice resonated throughout the hall. Hyun was recognized as an incredibly powerful mage, and for good reason. She possessed a magical weapon, a satellite orbiting the city academy. On top of that, she was also a key figure in one of the bad endings, making her a formidable opponent. She was also from his grandfather's generation, so Hyun was not someone to be trifled with. standing below Kyunggu, recalled the bits of information he had, as well as his own relationship with President Hyun. But he suddenly realized her appearance was a major distraction, and he needed to focus on the exam. By the time Kyunggu regained his focus, Hyun had already begun explaining the test. And if Hyun herself created this test, then it was going to be a tough one. Slowly, Hyun revealed the details to the candidates. It was an exam card battle. She continued to explain the rules, giving Kyunggu a gut feeling that even though the explanation sounded simple, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Looking at his phone, he broke into a cold sweat. The scoreboards were all displayed transparently with clear stats. She further explained that if an exam card is worth 100 points, regardless of color, you need to collect cards totaling 200 points, including your own. With a light press of a button, the system switched to display the terms and conditions for this test. Kyunggu focused on analyzing the strategy he would need to use to pass the test. An announcement declared the official start of the exam, with the candidates holding black exam cards entering first. At that moment, Kyunggu also considered how to capture Lee Ga-hoon's clone, analyzing his opponent like an open book. Seeing how she insanely turned people into puppets, he was even more determined to stop her before she destroyed everything. Hyun turned to discuss tactics with Kyunggu, but he just maintained an optimistic look. Hyun started to wonder if he'd be okay without her by his side. But Kyunggu's instinctual optimism was enough to make anyone deeply suspicious. But in the middle of his excitement, Kyunggu suddenly grew quiet. Hyun asked him, "What if they try to mess with us?" But, to put it simply, they just needed to beat them. The notification board lit up again, informing them they had entered the gold gate. The space around them was clear and blue. Kyunggu looked at the board a bit skeptical about how much they invested in this gate. Looking around, he felt he needed to return to the center of the island to meet the other candidates, fearing Lee Ga-hoon might have already possessed one of them. Making his way along the forest path, Kyunggu walked while trying to figure out which candidate might be possessed, but the clues he had were pitifully few. Suddenly, Kyunggu noticed something strange. A deathly blade came flying straight at him. Holy crap, he was lucky to dodge it, or he'd be dead meat right now. The unforgiving scythe swung back and forth. He gripped his weapon to counter, but all he heard from the other side was, "The moment I realized you were a candidate, I immediately used a sec." It was none other than Nam Yuri from the Starforge clan, but she looked a bit out of it. He remembered a while back when he accidentally met Yuri during the 4th test. At that time, she had approached Kyunggu during an event, and expressed a desire to get to know him. He had easily won Yuri's favor by being a smooth talker, but it was a genuine surprise that Yuri still called him by that nickname. Still, it was seriously dangerous for her to launch a surprise attack. Was it fate Kyunggu had run into Yuri, not just yesterday, but today as well? What a coincidence. Or maybe not. Yuri must think we're destined for each other or something. Hearing this, Kyunggu could barely force a smile and quickly changed the subject to finding shelter. The moment he turned to leave, Yuri immediately asked where he was off to. Her expression suddenly shifted, looking a bit shady as she gestured that they were in the middle of the exam. Her voice grew more and more menacing as she griped, "Why would you leave right after we just met?" The white-haired girl with the massive scythe looked absolutely badass. She thrusts her scythe forward, taunting our hero. Since it's an exam, if he's got the guts, he should come out for a one-on-one duel. If he leaves, what's the fun in that? As she spoke, her piercing violet eyes lit up. She said she witnessed our boy brawling with the final rabbit boss. She could tell he was no pushover, so she decided she had to fight him one-on-one, otherwise the game wouldn't be fun. With that, she lunged forward with an impossibly confident look, thinking this was an easy win. Kyunggu took a step back, gripping his sword tightly. It was inevitable that they'd have to fight. Kyunggu was just as confident, believing he'd defeat the white-haired girl and snag all 200 points. Elsewhere in the exam, someone held several scorecards in their hand, a soft humming sound echoing around them. But unlike the songs of sirens, this sounded more like the creepy music from a horror movie. Holding a pile of spoils, the brown-haired girl turned and walked away. She felt this exam was way too easy for her, since she hadn't met anyone who could even challenge her. The people sprawled out on the ground were all defeated by this brown-haired girl. She looks small and cute, but she's the real deal. To her, these kids weren't up to standard, just small fry for her to collect a few extra points. But there were a few who were considered decent. First was the kid from the Yan clan. The boy had a big mouth and was pretty gutsy. Next was the kid from the Cha clan, a pretty girl with unique jade green eyes. It turns out, inside the body of the brown-haired child was an old crone with snow-white hair and a laugh that would scare any kid. She was targeting those two kids, planning to turn them into her dolls. Back to the fight between our protagonist and the white-haired girl. She unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks. She continuously lunged forward, while our hero had to constantly dodge. The girl's long, massive scythe swung powerfully through the air. If Kyunggu hadn't reacted in time, he would have been turned into sliced sashimi by now. To the white-haired girl, dodging like this was no different from running away, but Kyunggu had a plan. He was just fighting according to his own strategy. The scythe whizzed by, costing Kyunggu a few strands of hair. If that had hit, he'd have a one-way ticket to the underworld. The white-haired girl's scythe techniques were truly masterful. Kyunggu was having a hell of a time dodging them all. He decided to end the fight while she had just thrown her scythe, and was unarmed. But the white-haired girl just smirked dangerously. She still had skills she hadn't shown yet. With that, her white hair transformed into a pair of muscular arms. A single slap from these hands could send you to the afterlife. The white-haired girl added that with this move, she would end the battle and claim victory. The hands made of hair shot towards Kyunggu. It forced him into a counterattack he couldn't avoid, but Kyunggu was no joke either. He smirked and raised his sword high. Turns out it wasn't just some ordinary sword. He unleashed his ultimate skill, Lion's Claw. With just one slash, the white-haired girl's hair was split in two, and the hands from before were rendered useless. The white-haired girl immediately recognized Kyunggu as one of the divine swordsmen of the Do clan, a totally badass title. With his abilities, that last move was indeed no big deal. The girl instantly switched to serious mode, and the fight grew even more intense. Gripping her scythe tightly, she warned Kyunggu not to kick the bucket too soon, because from now on, she wouldn't be holding back. Tossing the white-haired girl's exam badge in the air, Kyunggu confidently declared that their fight was already over. It turns out he took the opportunity when cutting her hair to snatch her badge. The white-haired girl was now completely and utterly floored. She realized her badge had been taken a while ago. Now she understood why Kyunggu went through all the trouble of getting in close to cut her hair. Although the fight was technically over, Kyunggu was still worried that she might get salty and lunge at him to get her badge back. As if reading his mind, the white-haired girl said she had no intention of doing that. She wasn't some sore loser who'd throw a tantrum to get her badge back. She straightforwardly admitted defeat, so much so that even Kyunggu was surprised at how easy it was. The white-haired girl explained that because her badge was black, no one dared to mess with her. Taking the exam like that was no fun at all. Kyunggu couldn't believe her way of thinking. After their exchange, the white-haired girl said her goodbyes and wished Kyunggu good luck on the rest of the test. She hoped to see him again at the academy. She even added that fighting him was a total blast. Kyunggu mumbled a reply and said goodbye. He was wondering if he had enough points to pass when a voice rang out. With a total of 200 points, he had reached the minimum score. An hour after entering the gate, Kyunggu suddenly wondered how Hanun was doing and if she was okay. Over on Hanun's side, she was gently telling her opponent not to move to avoid making her injuries worse. She advised her opponent to conserve what strength she had left. The red-haired girl was lying in a heap on the ground, covered in wounds, still in disbelief that she had lost. It was Min Arin from the Min clan, and even as Hanun was healing her, in disbelief over their last fight, Arin confidently went for a surprise attack on Han Yun, thinking she had this one in the bag. Arin figured the only reason she lost was because Han Yun is the disciple of the seven-colored witch. Han Yun just smiled, saying she only fought back because Kyu told her to be cautious. After all, someone as gentle as her would never hurt a fly. Seeing that Arin had a ton of exam badges, Han Yun asked for one. All that healing had to count for something, right? Arin begged her not to take the badge, but Han Yun was a stickler for the rules. She politely refused and wished Arin a speedy recovery. As Han Yun walked away, Arin just lay there completely crushed. Arin had always craved the #1 spot. Seeing herself fail so miserably, she burst into tears right then and there. And just like that, the first day of the 5th trial was over. The next morning, under a clear blue sky, Q woke up with a big stretch and a yawn. Right on cue, a system notification popped up. At 9 a.m., all badges would become visible within a 500-meter radius. Looking at the map, Q decided he needed to head towards the crowded areas and hit the streets to find Li Hun. He figured the map wasn't all that special other than showing where the badges were. After all, everyone else would probably flock to the same kinds of spots to hide their own badges anyway. But with no other choice, Q just went for it. Meanwhile, Hanan was running for her life, screaming about how this game was never going to end. But despite her frantic escape, she had actually managed to collect a ton of exam badges. That's when Hanan remembered Q frantically looking around and wondering where he was. She muttered to herself that a supply drop was scheduled for 12 o'clock. It'd be great if they could meet up. Her words just happened to be overheard by a girl with blonde hair. The girl let out a small gasp, and that's when Hanan finally noticed her. Bathed in sparkling sunlight, the girl radiated a brilliant aura. Hanan was stunned. Holy crap, it was the princess. Legend has it that about 200 years ago, during the Great Upheaval, something emerged alongside the World Tree, the World Empire. They were the Greys, and Leah was the princess of this empire. The moment she heard Princess Hanan's head started spinning. The very thought of fighting a princess scared her stiff, not just for the game, but for her future in the real world too. Leah, on the other hand, was completely at ease. She recognized the person before her as the bunny-eared girl who'd made such a strong impression during the first trial. She then walked right up and greeted Hanan like an old friend. Hanan in turn replied with a respectful bow. Seeing her reaction, Leah reassured her, "In this trial, everyone's equal. We're all just small potatoes here." But since Leah was a princess, Hanan still took her words as a direct order. The two of them then got back to the main issue. Leah called out to Hanan, making her jump, and then held out her hand with a proposition. "If we're not going to fight, let's be allies." It was also because Leah needed someone to stick with until she found her team. Hanan at this point was seriously conflicted. She was worried about getting into trouble later if she agreed, but Leah didn't seem like the backstabbing type, and Q seemed to trust her. After a moment of thought, Hanan decided to play it friendly and agreed to team up. A little while later, the sun was high in the sky. Elsewhere, after beating the crap out of a few other contestants, Q realized it was time for the supply drop. The system pinged him the location, and he took off immediately. He was also hoping to finally meet up with Hanan. On his way to the drop point, Q already had a plan. If another player got there first, he'd just take their supplies, times and times their badges. After a short run, Q spotted the first supply crate, but someone had already gotten to it. Turns out it was a familiar face, Go Eunbi. But Eunbi wasn't alone. She had a whole squad with her. They were all her teammates. Q noted that Eunbi could make friends literally anywhere. She then asked about Hanan, but Q still hadn't run into the bunny girl. So, the kind-hearted Eunbi suggested they do a lunch mukbang together. Kyunggu agreed to join them. As they walked, they chatted about all the loot they'd scored. Just then, Eunbi suddenly asked about someone. Based on her description, it was a woman. She acts like some self-appointed judge, stirring up trouble for contestants just to test their skills. If a contestant fails, they lose their badge. If they pass, they get to keep it. Hearing this, Q is pretty sure she's talking about Lee Hun, but to be 100% certain, he asks Eunbi to describe what she looks like. Eunbi says she's small and kinda weird, with a yellow badge. She carries dual swords and is apparently a total tank. Eunbi also adds that the girl seems to be hunting for the person who's collected the most badges. A sly grin spreads across Q's face. He realizes he's just found the perfect way to get Lee Hun to join his team. He proposed a partnership with Go Eunbi. First, after they collected all the badges from her and her teammates, they would initiate a strategy led by Go Eunbi. She would pretend to be terrified of the participant from the Divine Sword Clan, who was actually Kyunggu. Then she'd rally other teams to join forces with her against him, adding that they could earn over 1,000 points in a single night. A single night, so dramatic. Hearing the sweet deal, a bunch of participants immediately voiced their support and joined in. At that moment, Kyunggu would reveal himself, unleash his skills, and just like that, take everything they had. But that wasn't even his main goal. He wanted to cause a huge scene like this, mainly to attract Lee Hun's attention. And sure enough, he was right. Perched on a tree branch, Lee Hun watched and assessed everything. She found this guy pretty interesting, and on top of that was dying to see the devastated look on Kyunggu's face. Night fell, and finally the day's schedule was over, and it was time to head back. Looking at the pile of badges in her hand, Eunbi couldn't contain her joy. She thanked Kyunggu, who didn't forget to remind her to share his cut. Eunbi felt it wasn't quite right since Kyunggu was the one who contributed the most, but he just saw it as everyone helping each other out, so splitting it evenly was only natural. Hearing this, Eunbi thanked him profusely. Looking around, he felt a bit disappointed that Lee Hun hadn't shown up, but thanks to his instincts, he could always feel her eyes on him. And then, there was that mysterious woman with the gold badge. He couldn't remember her face, but that badge sparkled brilliantly in the night. He guessed she was probably waiting for the right moment to pop out and give him a heart attack. But it would likely be tomorrow, since that was the final exam and also the last chance. Kyunggu had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Lee Hun had better show up soon. And just then, a red rift suddenly appeared. From within, a voice echoed, saying they would seize the opportunity tonight. And the target about to get a beatdown was the kid from the Divine Sword Clan. Just as Kyunggu predicted, Lee Hun was going to use tonight as her golden opportunity. Using the shadow soldiers standing behind her, Ga-hyun announced that everyone now had a job to do. As darkness descended, her staff slammed into the ground, becoming a focal point. Min Aaron was exhausted, feeling a little crushed for not being able to break her limits, and for definitely not being a thief. Recalling what just happened, she'd attacked participants who passed by. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. She's a mage, so Aaron was actually doing a good job, right? I mean, how else could someone get 200 points overnight? It was a total piece of cake, but right then, something in her skirt pocket vibrated, scaring the crap out of her. The system flashed a notification about a gate which made her curious. All the other participants must be rushing to that spot. It was exactly 9 o'clock. Should Aaron try to take a little more from them, but suddenly another sound rang out. Startled, Min Aaron whipped her head around. She was on high alert, and holy crap, the number of monsters was insane. Just then, a type of monster that should have only appeared on the previous island's terrain showed up. One of them snarled and advanced, giving her no time to even think. Her legs reacted instantly, and she started to run, but suddenly, Yahello appeared to help, making her wonder what his deal was. He wondered why there were so many monsters, but before things got dangerous, it was better to go warn him. As he glanced around, he realized someone from the Min clan was here, and quickly tried to act friendly, but Min Aaron's eyes had already glazed over. He seized the opportunity to grab her by the shoulder, insisting they go since Kyunggu might be in danger, and they'd have a better chance saving him together. This startled Min Aaron. She didn't know who this Kyunggu guy was, and she really didn't want to go. But Yahello was a man of honor. He couldn't just turn a blind eye when his friend was in trouble. They had to go. Now. But Aaron refused. She really didn't want to. It's not like she was some tough guy. Meanwhile, the blonde girl with Han Yun sensed something was off and turned to ask about it. Han Yun deduced that the appearance of a monster horde this large meant a high-level entity was involved. However, a third-rank entity is the strongest on this Chaos Island, and on our own, there's nothing we can do. But seriously, what the hell was this situation? Suddenly, she felt an urgent need to find Kyunggu. Pools of blood were scattered on the ground. Unbi trembled in fear, not knowing what to do. Were they all going to die here? But Kyunggu, with his nerves of steel, told everyone to snap out of it. He asked if they were all prepared. He really hadn't expected her to unleash her fury with a monster horde. One by one, they appeared surrounding the students. They didn't just harm people, they were intelligent. This meant Ga Hyun was dead serious about this. Like a true badass, Kyunggu charged forward to hold off the monsters, telling everyone else to run ahead. But just when you'd expect a movie like We'll Never Leave You Behind moment, Unbi just agreed and ran. A nearby mandrill saw this happen. All by himself, Kyunggu realizes the monster gets a power-up in the dark, darting around like it's surfing on shadows. But no matter what, this baboon is no match for him. He instantly teleports behind it, raising his sword to strike. With a single textbook-perfect swing, he slices the baboon clean in half. The monster lets out a shocked roar, completely blindsided. He follows up one strike with another, unleashing his blue lightning technique. Kyunggu takes down the monster with absolute ease. But it's not that simple. Kyunggu figures Unbi must have escaped, but now he's stuck here and has to wipe out all of them. Suddenly, a girl's voice calls out to Kyunggu, explaining that she wasn't deliberately waiting for him alone. With a rush of wind, Lee Ga-hyun appears and introduces herself, adding that she has no choice but to summon a few helpers to deal with them. But why not just take them all on together? Kyunggu recognizes the challenge. He thinks about it. It sounds fun, but it took a lot of effort just to lure her here in the first place. Seeing his hesitation, Lee Ga-hyun seems intrigued. What an interesting guy. Kyunggu doesn't mind making a new friend, but he's not sure if her intentions are any good. Lee Ga-hyun immediately demands to know how Kyunggu could have possibly figured out her true identity. Her expression instantly shifts, becoming far more menacing. I mean, she did a perfect job hiding everything, didn't she? Just then, the system window pops up, analyzing Lee Ga-hyun's stats. Of course, that's how he knew, but there's no way in hell he's telling her that. If you're so curious, come at me instead of just judging from afar. Lee Ga-hyun smirks, amused by his feisty attitude. But you'll live to regret it. Back in the observation room, red alerts start blaring. It's a critical emergency, and all hell breaks loose. The white-haired woman gives an order to notify everyone in the forest and protect the participants. When the gate opens, charge straight through. She stares at the crisis monitor with a growing sense of dread, her eyes turning bloodshot. The system announces that a pressure debuff has been activated, reducing all abilities by 80%. Immediately after, other warnings start flashing on the screen one after another. Lee Ga-hyun just throws her head back and laughs with glee. She moves like a flash of lightning, relentlessly taunting our boy Kyunggu. You'll never catch me if you just keep dodging like that. Tell me how you figured me out and I'll spare your pathetic little life. You're totally my type, so I really don't want to have to kill you. Kyung-gu is completely on the defensive, struggling to block Lee Ga-hyun's onslaught. He activates a skill, Beast King's Sword Style, third form Guardian Lion, just to defend himself. Still, this is an incredibly tough fight for Kyung-gu. As expected of one of the 6 demon people, she's easily the strongest in the demon guild. Their power is on a completely different level. In the middle of this incredibly tense battle, Lee Ga-hyun makes a shocking proposal. "Hey, how about you join us?" Hearing this, our main character Kyung-gu just smirks and fires back. "Now you want me to become a demon? You really are a lost cause. Sorry, but I'm gonna have to pass." With that, he unleashes his next skill, Beast King's Sword Style, second form Lion's Roar. The technique fires off 3 green sword slashes, finally giving Kyung-gu an opening to counterattack Lee Ga-hyun. Seeing this, she looks absolutely thrilled and says, "Should I prepare a doll for you, one that perfectly suits your tastes? Just tell me what you want, and we can live happily ever after. I really, really like you, Kyung-gu. Don't you dare reject me. I want to give you a chance." Hearing Lee Ga-hyun's sick fantasies, Kyung-gu can only sneer as he fights back. "I'm going to have to throw out that ridiculous and totally unconvincing offer of yours. So, Lee Ga-hyun, how about I give you a chance instead? Do you want a life that's all sunshine and roses, or a dead-end existence with no escape?" The second he finishes speaking, Kyung-gu unleashes his attack, Royal Blue Sword Electric Current Shot. He swings his blade with incredible force, creating huge, blindingly fast bolts of lightning that slam into Lee Ga-hyun, zapping her without missing and making her scream, "Arga." After taking a critical hit that injures one of her legs, she roars with fury. "So you refuse to listen to reason? Fine. You won't learn until you're at death's door, huh? If you're so eager to die, I'll grant your wish. Now, die." She aims her remaining legs and lunges straight for Kyung-gu. But he's already planning his next move. Lee Ga-hyun is still standing strong even after taking a direct hit from his electric current shot. Dealing with her won't be easy, but he knows. Kyung-gu boldly declared to his enemy, "I have zero reason to listen to you, and I refuse to be your puppet." Then he unleashed his next attack, Beast King, Sword Style, fifth form, Ferocious Lion Strike. He was dead set on overwhelming her and winning this life or death battle. He charged at his enemy like a freaking storm. Beast King Sword Style first form Raging Lion Slash. Every one of his sword strokes was graceful, yet unbelievably powerful and fierce. Just like that, the seemingly small Kyung-gu was fighting on par with a demon many times his size. Finally, Kyung-gu managed to stab Lia Hyun in the shoulder, making her flinch. He had to admit the Du family's swordsmanship was legit, not bad at all. This little game of good cop bad cop is fun, but your family is just so damn annoying. Before he could react, she shot a thread into Kyun-yu's forearm and kicked him hard, sending him flying. All he could do was curse. Man, what a bad matchup. Just when he thought he had her in the bag, she completely flipped the script on him. Lia Hyun now had the upper hand, gloating that he was about to become her personal puppet. "This is your absolute last chance." She'd dress him up however she pleased. But just then, far in the distance, right behind her, a blue flare shot into the sky. Kyun-yu's eyes lit up. It was the secret signal he'd arranged with Eunbi and Hanun back in the 3rd round. He struggled to his feet, retorting, "Instead of worrying about the future, you should focus on surviving right now." Lia Hyun looked confused, asking, "What?" until she saw a strange, massive purple insignia materialize right behind her back. It was Hanun showing up just in the nick of time to save our hero. The tables turned in the blink of an eye. Hanun activated her skill, Dark Convergence. The purple ring descended on Lia Hyun like a UFO, successfully trapping her. Immediately after Hanun landed and rushed over to check on Kyun-yu, Lia was with her. "Kyun-yu, are you okay?" Kyun-yu whispered. "I'm fine. Glad you guys found me." He wondered to himself, since when is Hanun so chummy with Leah Gray? Kyun-yu asked her, "You're Leah Gray, right?" She replied, "Sorry, but we're out of time. I'll introduce myself properly later." Our protagonist asked, "You're a B-rank healer, aren't you?" and requested that Leah heal the serious injuries he'd taken. She couldn't exactly say no. Back to the battle, Hanun asked Kyun-yu, "So what is that thing? At first glance it looks like a demon." Kyun-yu warned, "You got it. That's exactly what she is, so be careful. She's crazy strong." Leah reassured them, "Just leave the B-rank healing to me." Hanun said thanks, telling Leah Gray she was counting on her, then turned to the demon, Lia Hyun. "You're the one who did all this, aren't you?" Having broken free of the restraints, Lia Hyun replied, "Aw, I really didn't want to do this. You know, kill him." With that, she fired her threads at the heroes, but something sliced right through them. It was a scythe, and its owner had just appeared. It was Nam Yuri. The girl cheerfully exclaimed, Kyun-yu, we meet again." I sensed a huge power source, so I hurried over to check it out. And look, it's you fighting a monster, but this isn't a monster. It's a demon, right? Things are always so much more fun whenever you're around Kyun Yu. Kyun Yu. Right behind her, Yi Harang was leading reinforcements and grinning Kyun Yu having a tough fight with that powerful demon. I'm here to help, and I brought back up Nam Yuri, explained to a stunned Kyun Yu that she'd gathered them on her way over. Kyun Yu thought to himself, Yi Harang. Did he bring Min Arin me and Yi Harang Hanun and Min Arin Nam Yuri and Leah? Holy crap, what luck. Almost all the main characters from the game were gathered right here. With their combined power, they could fight Lia Hun way more effectively than he could alone. Meanwhile, Lia Hun was done having fun. She snarled, this was fun at first, but now, all these pests have shown up. No matter how many chances she'd given Kyun Yu, she was now going to teach his entire crew a lesson. She screamed, unleashing her threads on everyone. Kyun Yu shouted a warning. Everyone, you've probably figured it out. Our opponent is a demon. She's one of the 6 demonic beings, the puppet witch Lia Hun, and this is just her puppet. Don't let your guard down, everyone. Nam Yuri, however, was playfully relaxed, especially since our opponent is the puppet witch Lia Hun. I knew hanging around you would be interesting, Kyun Yu. I'll handle her minions so they don't get in your way. Nam Yuri chanted her skill, Transformation Fire Dragon's purple left hand. One of her hands changed shape, completely obliterating Lia Hun's attacks. The demon was furious, cursing through gritted teeth. You annoying piece of trash, how dare you block my power? I'm going to slaughter every last one of you today. Lia Hun created an incredibly sturdy defensive web, so tough that even Min Arin's fire couldn't do a thing to it. Lia Hun mocked them with delight. You think Arin's fire is strong enough to melt my silver threads? In that instant, Hanun's impact pike and Yi Harang's explosive fist struck. The sudden simultaneous assault caught Lia Hun completely off guard, shattering her webbed defense. She managed to snag one of Yi Harang's legs, partially restraining him. Seeing his opening, our protagonist Kyun Yu charged forward with his sword, thinking that Lia Hun's special abilities would have been the biggest problem. But thanks to Nam Yuri and Min Arin, everything was under control. Hanun and Yi Harang were also distracting her, keeping those legs from ever reaching him. I have to end this right here. I have to take down Lia Hun. He leaped into the air, unleashing his lion's shattering strike directly at his opponent. Kyun Yu stood alone against Lia Hun, swinging his sword and releasing an immense wave of power. Witnessing his incredible strength, she couldn't stop cursing in her head, realizing there was no way she could beat. Even though her face was dripping with sweat, Lia Hyun still put on a brave face looking down on him. He couldn't just make a clean escape because her soul was linked to her main body. If this host body died, its memories would instantly transfer back to the original. So, Lia Hyun threatened him. If she died, he'd become a priority target for the entire demon guild. Despite the threat, Kyung-goo's expression didn't even flinch. Not a hint of fear. Instead, a triumphant smirk spread across his face. He wouldn't regret it for a second. In fact, it would just make finding her real body easier. Killing her was a given. Seeing that threats were useless, Lia Hyun could only glare at him with dagger-like eyes. Spreading one hand, white threads shot out to ensnare him. Suddenly, something came flying in at lightning speed, glowing with a brilliant blue light. Before she could react, Lia Hyun was pierced by a sharp arrow. The powerful shot slammed right into the wrist she was about to attack with. She was totally and utterly shocked. She had no idea where it came from. Turns out it was Eunbi. Her face was set with fierce determination. She held her bow aimed squarely at the target. The system simultaneously announced she had acquired the skill Sharpshooter's Eye Level 1. It was a passive skill that increased her accuracy by 5%. Seeing this, Kyung-goo's expression grew serious, silently impressed by how clutch Eunbi's support was. He then went right back to taunting Lia Hyun, guessing that since her soul was linked to her main body, it would retain these memories. If you're scared, just go home. Kyung-gu flexed his sky-high IQ. He yelled it right in her face. He gambled that her threat only worked if she successfully escaped the gate. Lia Hyun's soul couldn't interfere from inside the gate. If he killed her, times her main body would never even know what happened. Looks like Lia Hyun had seriously underestimated him. Hearing his deduction, her face turned beet red. Holy crap, she was pissed. She never imagined he'd figure that out. Suddenly, the system popped up again, reminding him his physical stats had reached their limit. Speed increased by 1. At that moment, Kyung-goo's gaze was solid as steel, as he warned Lia Hyun to give up before it was too late. A whole bunch of his skills leveled up at once. Mana increased by 1. Skills upgraded. Instinct control is now at 5 out of 6. Radiating a massive aura of power, Kyung-gu declared with absolute certainty that Lia Hyun was not leaving this place alive. He gripped his heavenly sword and unleashed Azure Sword Annihilation Stream, bringing a single devastating slash down upon her. A huge explosion rocked the area, kicking up a cloud of dust. When it cleared, only his overwhelming power remained. Lia Hyun, it seems, had officially kicked the bucket. Witnessing that, everyone breathed a huge sigh of relief. Harang laughed, cheering that Yoonbi's archery skills were totally top tier. But Yoonbi humbly brushed it off, saying she couldn't have done it without everyone's help. Harang then turned to thank Min of the family for her hard work. Hearing that name, Irene got super annoyed. Because she has her own name, damn it. Watching them bicker, Jeonhwen looked on with the exasperated smile of a tired dad. Ignoring the chaos, she looked over at Kyunggu and said, "You worked hard." But Aaron seemed to notice something, and a confused look crossed her face. Kyunggu was just staring off in one direction. When she asked what was up, he just brushed it off, saying it was nothing. That just made her more suspicious. Looking at the charred corpse, the two girls kept chatting, noticing there was no soulstone inside the body. They had no idea where it went. Liza was just as confused, since she couldn't sense any more demonic energy nearby. Over here, Aaron stood by Kyunggu, waving a dismissive hand. She called their enemy a coward for bailing right before the end. Hearing that, Kyunggu's face just darkened. He was pissed at Lia Hyun's insane ability to escape, even if this was a game. But then, a bright smile lit up his face. Because no matter how far Lia Hyun ran, she had to head for the gate to reconnect with her main body. Knowing this, he told everyone to back him up. He was going after her. Cut to Lia Hyun now, in the form of a rabbit running for her dear life. She was furious about having to escape in this pathetic body, because it was so not cute. But without this rabbit's soul, her plan would fail and she'd lose the soul stone. Lia Hyun's face was seething with rage, but she had no choice but to accept this ugly imperfection in order to escape. In just a few moments, she reached the gate just as Kyun Yu had predicted. Lia Hyun had to get through it to send intel and protect her main soul. She was kicking herself for ever focusing on Kyun Yu. This time, Lia Hyun was determined to get out of there fast and deal with him. Suddenly, a girl with jet black hair appeared from a portal, seriously asking if this rabbit was really Lia Hyun. The girl's green eyes were filled with killing intent as she sighed about how much of a nuisance Lia Hyun was. Then jagged shards of rock erupted from the ground, sending the rabbit Lia Hyun was possessing flying. She was furious, recognizing the spirit master from the Cha clan. But then, Lia Hyun's expression shifted to surprise as she suddenly looked off in another direction. Turns out, it was Kyun Yu. He had just shown up looking totally badass, with a sword in hand the moment he saw her. His face was a mix of excitement and cold fury, like he'd just struck gold. Without a word, Kyun Yu immediately unleashed his Beast King sword style. 12th form, the Lion's Pain. Seeing the blade about to take her life, Lia Hyun couldn't bring herself to accept his power, how he'd made it this far, but damn did she love his fighting spirit. Then she uttered a single phrase just for him. "You pass," leaving Kyun Yu's eyes wide with shock. He was stunned for a solid 5 seconds before remembering his mission, swinging his sword to send Lia Hyun packing. A massive flash of light erupted. It lit up the entire sky. With Lia Hyun's clone captured, the chaos finally subsided. Kyun Yu turned with a smile, thanking Cha Unon for the assist and introducing himself. Yunon meanwhile was yawning her head off. Still, she replied and said she was going to take a nap. And with that, the long and treacherous 5th round finally came to a close. The system announced that the test was officially over, and any fights that took place from now on would result in a penalty. Finally, all contestants were told to submit their scorecards and get instructions from the proctors outside the gate. Cut to the principal's office, where the principal was sitting calmly. After witnessing Kyun Yu's insane skills, she had every reason to take him on as her disciple. A hesitant voice was heard. It was Kyun Yu, sitting across from the principal, who was praising his performance during the test. "Your performance in round 4, and especially in round 5, was truly impressive." Hearing this, Kyun Yu just stammered out a humble, "Thank you." He insisted he wasn't that great since he had help from others. But internally, Kyun Yu had an epiphany. He realized why the test was so brutal. She was the one who designed the 4th round. Her gaze turned serious. She asked how he'd recognized Lia Hyun's clone, saying it felt like he already knew about it before she even transformed into a demon. Seeing the principal's suspicion, he swore to himself that he could never ever tell her the truth. So Kyun Yu just gave a vague excuse about it being a trick question. One lie always leads to another. He began to spin his tale. He explained that the grade 2 monster he'd faced earlier was just following orders, so he figured there had to be a demon pulling the strings. Then, he ran into a contestant with a gold card who acted like she was the puppeteer. And of all the demons, with shape-shifting abilities. Lia Hyun was the most likely suspect, so it was just a hunch. The principal then asked if she should believe him. He simply admitted it was up to her. After a moment, the principal agreed to table it for now, but warned him, "This isn't something you can just talk about. If word gets out, the students involved in this incident could be in serious danger. However, since you took down a demon and protected the other students as a reward, I'll ensure everyone who participated in that battle receives proper compensation." The principal then pulled out a shimmering rainbow-colored gem and continued. She explained that Lia Hyun's soul stone was supposed to go to him, but for security reasons, the principal would hold on to it for now. She assured him he'd receive something of equal value in its place. Staring at the stone, Kyunyu's face fell. Deep down, he already knew he wasn't getting that soul stone. He then asked if the reward could be an upgrade item like a rune or even a cash equivalent. Hearing his question, the principal just gave a little smile and asked, "You're a swordsman, right?" Kyunyu confirmed it. She then handed him a ring. It had a green gem, and she wished him continued success. This ring was the Ring of Clarity, the legendary ring of the light sorceress Sohun. It held the power to purify impurities in its wielder's energy and boost their energy efficiency. Its effect when your energy is below 80%, the ring reduces the energy consumption for all equipped skills that are level 8 or below by 20%. The test was over, and after a celebratory party, Kyunyu and his friends all headed home. Haenun, walking behind him, asked what he was so happy about. At that, he just clenched his fist, showing off the ring. He explained he was stoked because he got it from the principal. "It's a replacement for the soul stone, and will seriously boost my energy efficiency." Seeing how happy he was, Haenun smiled, congratulating him. After passing through the portal where the kids were born, he said goodbye to everyone and headed home. Kyun-woo and Haenun, holding their suitcases, they prepared to head back together. He broke the silence, telling her his whole family was getting together tonight. It was for his return, and he wanted to know if she'd join them for dinner. Haenun was totally surprised, never expecting the invitation. Then Kyun-yu took Haenun's arm. The memory of their small hands intertwined with the present, reminding him of the very first time he brought her home. Their younger and older selves weren't so different aside from height and size. His expression was still just as joyful, that same ecstatic look he had when inviting her over. Kyun-yu and Haenun had become partners to prevent the world's collapse, but she was still the same as ever. Incredibly shy, blushing as he held her hand and led her home. Together, he and Haenun would overcome every obstacle to fight against the apocalypse. And his first step was to meet as many people as possible at Jumgang Academy, including Hanbin and Kyun-woo. He was seriously looking forward to the stories that were about to unfold. In that moment, the two of them shared a charged look, their faces flushed red. Kyun-woo was Haenun's childhood friend, and this scene brings the story, becoming the final boss's childhood friend, to a close. Sometime later, Lee-hoon stood amidst shattered mirrors, refusing to accept the truth of her own imperfect soul. She wondered why she was caught refusing to believe she could ever make a mistake. Her eyes were vacant. It seemed her mind had finally snapped. The scene shifts. We see a pair of legs walking as a greeting is spoken. This must be Kyun-woo. He was proud to explore the things his master taught him, and he was determined to do whatever it took to make that man proud. Kyun-woo declared that he would become a truly badass hunter. At that same moment, he raised his hand and knocked on a door. Inside, a white-haired woman holding a list invited him in. Turns out she was the principal. She looked at him and said the school was honored to have him at Jumgang Academy. Kyun-woo looked so much more grown up now. He will return again one